I'm calling the meeting back to order. And before, do we have a student? Typically, our student member Halbo reads a broadcaster statement, but I'll have member Pritchett read it.
This meeting of the Sacramento City School Board is being recorded in its entirety and will be cablecast on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel on Comcast, Consolidated Communications, and AT&T U-verse. Today's meeting will air Sunday, September 23rd at 6 p.m. and Monday, September 24th at 6 p.m. and webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. We welcome members of the audience to address the board. Please complete a speaker form located in the back of the community room and give it to our communications representative, along with any handouts that you may have for the board prior to the conclusion of the item's presentation. Please speak into the microphone when addressing the board and state your name for the record. Please limit comments during public comment to items that are not listed on the agenda. If you do comment on an item that is listed on the agenda, we will ask you to please defer your comments until your item comes up on the agenda. Please also turn your cell phones on or turn them off or place them in the silent or vibrate mode.
Thank you, Member Pritchett. Next is item 4.2, the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by the Spartan Club of Wilsey Wood Middle School. Would you like to come up?
Can everyone please stand? Put your right hand over your heart and begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all.
Stay there for a moment. Do you have something to read?
Yep. Go ahead. Do you want to introduce us?
Second Vice President Minnick has a statement, and then he'll be presenting certificates.
All right. Hello, Spartan Club. How you doing?
Good.
Awesome. All right. So I'm going to take just a couple minutes here and talk a little bit about the Wilsey Wood Middle School Spartan Club. And you'll see some photos behind me as we go. The Spartan Club encourages students to become involved with their communities. Through STEM-based activities, that's science, technology, engineering, and math, students learn to assess the needs of both school and home communities and devise solutions. Last school year, they decided to work on their school community by looking into campus wildlife. They researched what type of habitat was best for the sparrow population and then built 12 new homes for them. They planted a garden and flowers for hummingbirds and bees. And they connected with the Morrison Creek Revitalization Project. This is how I got a chance to work with them. Morrison Creek runs through our neighborhoods around Wilsey Wood and is in poor shape and fenced off and not really usable to the community. So the project is looking at ways to fix it up and create open spaces for community members to use. So they have learned the needs of the project, integrating both the community needs and the needs of the creek habitat. They've started community outreach through a social media campaign. They created and presented a PowerPoint presentation to all Wilsey Wood science classes. They were involved in a creek cleanup and visioning process. And then last Saturday, I got to join them and others to tour Morrison Creek and then also visit some other creeks, like one out in Winters, that have done similar kind of revitalization efforts so they can start thinking of ideas of how we can make this creek awesome for our neighborhood. So they are doing an amazing amount of work. I am really proud of the Wilsey Wood Spartan Club. So thank you.
So the microphone and the podium is yours if you'd like to make a statement.
And while you give your prepared speech, no more than 45 minutes, I'll be. I'm just kidding. I'll be coming down to give you your certificates. But please feel free to share anything you'd like. Or not.
What are your names?
Tell us who you are.
I'm Ian, an 8th grader at Wilsey Wood, who participated on Saturday at divisioning for Morrison Creek. Yeah.
Does the rest of you want to introduce yourself?
My name's Luma, and I'm an 8th grader at Wilsey Wood, and I helped revitalize the creek last year, and I was also in Spartan Club last year.
Hello, my name is Keely. I'm also an 8th grader. I also helped revitalize Morrison Creek about like a few months back, and I was also at the visioning for Morrison Creek on Saturday.
Hello, my name is Ryan. I'm an 8th grader at Wilsey Wood. I went to the Morrison Creek envisioning process, and I helped revitalize it.
My name is Yan Hao, and I'm also an 8th grader that helped for Morrison Creek last Saturday.
Anybody else? Would somebody like to tell us, everybody, how you came up with the idea for the project?
You had the most experience.
I'm going to photobomb you guys if you guys don't come up with something.
Do it anyway.
So what we did, we had a bunch of students come together and say what they'd want to see at in their community, and we had like these maps, and we put whatever we wanted on there. So like if we wanted to put benches and stuff, we would just put a sticky note and write benches and put it wherever we wanted it, or whatever we wanted on that area.
Excellent. Is there anybody else?
There's a picture of that happening right there.
So I have a question.
Yes.
I'd like to know, and maybe the spokesperson who led the pledge, have you seen some wildlife like hummingbirds use the feeders, or an increase in the sparrows?
I saw some birds, some wildlife at Poudre Creek?
Poudre Creek.
Yeah, Poudre Creek. It was the view, the environment was very beautiful.
Well, I think that's fantastic. The job that you've done is really important to make alive an urban scape for urban wildlife. Thank you for your work.
And hopefully you'll carry that forth to many other wilderness areas in the Sacramento County area, because this area is just full of wildlife. And it's amazing once you get out of the streets and the tarmac and the asphalt, and you could see the wide variety of birds and fishes and occasional beaver. It's very cool. So thank you for your service. These are the certificates of presentation of the certificates. So. We'll hold on to that one. All right, stay down there, Vice President Minnick, and it's photo time. Turn around.
Come down. You guys can hold up. You guys can open up your.
Wait for superintendent to join.
Get Superintendent I go out now. We're going to get photobombed by Vice President Williams. Good job, guys.
Thank you, Wilsey Wood Spartan Club, and please keep up the good work. Thank you. Item 5.0, announcements of actions taken in closed session.
Yes, Mr. President, two announcements I have to make out of closed session. By a unanimous vote with Board President Ryan absent, the Board approved participation as an amicus in support of CSBA's appeal in California Supreme Court number S247266. By a similar vote in Glaviano v. SCUSD, case number 34-2013-87,1662, approved giving a settlement with total release subject to conditions. That concludes my announcements out of closed session, Mr. President.
Thank you, Counselor. Item 6.0, agenda adoption.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Item 7.0, Member Hanson. 7.1, approve resolution number 3035 in recognition of High School Voter Education Week, September 17th through the 28th.
Great. Thank you very much. This is very important, and every year or every 2 years when we're voting, nothing is more important as a citizen of our state and nation. So I'd like to call up CKM co-chairs Eleanor Love and Lauren Kim, and Vice Chair Luke Delcor from McClatchy's Youth Commission to come up, please. Great. Thank you very much for joining us today. As some folks in the audience might know, a law was changed a year or so ago that allows 16 and 17-year-olds to register to vote. You still have to wait till you're 18 to vote, but you can pre-register now. So it's an opportunity for our young adults to be, our young citizens to be, to learn about how important it is to participate in probably one of our most fundamental duties as a citizen, and that's voting. And we want to recognize and commend the great work that's happening at McClatchy and other of our schools, and give an opportunity to all of you to tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing there at McClatchy.
Good evening. I'm Eleanor Love, and I'm part of the Sacramento County Youth Commission. Thank you for having us tonight, and thank you for considering a resolution to recognize high school voter education weeks. This is an incredibly important issue for teens in Sacramento County, as you just mentioned. I proposed our commission's voter pre-registration project at the start of the summer, and I'm also co-chair of that project. I've been working with Mr. Nathaniel Browning, as well as Mr. Alex Berrios and Mr. Strother, to improve the way your district informs and encourages students regarding pre-registration. I've also been in contact with the Elk Grove and San Juan Unified School Districts in addition to yours. In working with your district, I suggested different ideas to inform and encourage students. Mr. Berrios agreed to include information that we provided about pre-registration in one of the e-connection editions. We also gave him a video we made talking about the importance of pre-registration and a letter that could be sent to parents and students about pre-registration, as well as other links that might be useful. My co-chair, Lauren Kim, will now speak.
Good evening. My name is Lauren Kim, and I'm the co-chair of the Voter Pre-Registration Project. I'm on the Sacramento Public Library System-Wide Teen Advisory Board, as well as the South Natomas Branch Teen Advisory Board, which caters to the needs of teens in the library communities in the Sacramento area. And I was the one who proposed establishing a connection with the Sacramento County Youth Commission. So currently, we'll be working with them to encourage pre-registration during the upcoming gubernatorial elections. And SEYC will be partnering with the teen advisory boards at all the library branches in Sacramento, setting up pre-registration booths at all the library polls to raise awareness. And we'll be also doing more volunteer work at the branches. And then additionally, we attended National Night Out in Oak Park, which is a countrywide event celebrating community police relationships. We encourage pre-registration and pre-registered teens at that event, and we're going to be continuing to attend more of these outreach events in the future as well. And I'd like to now invite our Vice Chair of the Sacramento County Youth Commission, Luke Delcourt, to speak.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Luke Delcourt, and I'm the Vice Chair of the Sacramento County Youth Commission. I'm also a member of the Voter Pre-Registration Project Subcommittee. So our goal as the Sacramento County Youth Commission is to represent the teens in Sacramento County, and our job is to help improve the issues that teens face in our area. And, well, the point I'd like to make is that voting in general is obviously extremely important, and our job is to increase, here's what I'd like to say. The 18 to 24-year-old age group is consistently underrepresented in every election. And pre-registration is one of the quickest and easiest steps that a 16 or 17-year-old can take to be prepared to vote. And they're far more likely to vote if they pre-register when they're 16 or 17 years old. When we did our research in the beginning of the summer, we found that roughly 10% of eligible teens were actually pre-registered to vote, which is a rather low percentage. And it's clearly something that not enough people know about. So it's an important action that teens can take to contribute to their community. Our overall goal is to raise awareness about pre-registration, both among teens and among their parents, to help increase the number of young people who pre-register and vote. We hope you find our materials useful, and we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll just say it's very important, the work that you're doing there. Nothing's more vital to our democracy than having an informed citizenry, and it's never been more important for all of you to be involved. So it's great that the Sacramento County Youth Commission's doing that work, and our students here in our district are help leading the charge. So I don't know if anyone else has any comments, but
Member Pritchett.
You're rusty, Member Wu.
Start writing the names down.
I couldn't agree with Member Hanson more on the important work that you guys are doing. The one question I have is we have 5 comprehensive high schools in our area. How can we get you guys into those high schools more? For example, I represent Rosemont High School, and I know that there's not a lot of outreach in that area. So my question to you is, how can I work with you to be able to get that into there?
So that's a great question. I think that a good idea to do that, is to maybe collaborate with us, and maybe we can come up with ideas for activities for that school in particular, for example, like mock elections, or maybe there's a day that, for example, an announcement could go over the PSA system, letting 16 and 17-year-olds know that they can pre-register. The principal could hold a meeting with the sophomores and juniors and seniors of that high school to talk to them about that importance. Things like that, we could work with you to come up with ideas.
I would love that. Can I give you my business card? And
yes.
We can reach out?
Yeah.
Okay, that would be great.
And I know that I've been to American Legion to have to work with what's the Women's Voters Organization? League of Women Voters, to introduce them to early voting as well. So continue. I thank you for working with Alex Barrios. He's our communications director, and hopefully he will have a plan for us to reach out to every one of our high schools.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes,
I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution 3035.
I have a motion. I have a second. Second. I have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you.
And we have resolutions ready to take home. So
Thank you so much.
You're very
Thank
welcome,
you.
and
Thank you for your time.
Take you anywhere.
Thank you very much. Item 8, public comment. Do we have any public comment, Mr. Barrios?
We have 21 public comments. And if you can come up when you hear your name called, please. First is Alan Dari, followed by David Bain, Cecile Nunley, Enoch Young, Virginia Tsai, Brianna Kitcher, Amy Bond, Uriah Symphony, Lawrence Leong, Rose Jameson, Kenya Martinez, Kaylee Casey, James Ciceros, Melanie Hogg, Cindy Casey, Justin Smith, Michelle Wong, and Scott Brown.
Just as a reminder, when you come up to the podium, please restate your name for us because I stopped after Enoch. So,
thank you. I'm Alan Dory. I'm a business agent representing the two of the Teamster bargaining units here at Sac City Unified School District. With me is Ian Arnold of SEIU. This morning, all of the folks that were part of the labor management consortium met with the press to have a press conference to let them know about our position on the budget crisis here, and to let them know that first off, we're not pointing fingers at the board, or we're not pointing fingers at the district itself, but that we're looking for solutions to work together collaboratively. And our labor management consortium consists of 4 of the 5 bargaining units here at the district. One of the things I think that we really think will make a difference, besides just working collaboratively, is good communication that we have with the superintendent. And I think we're pretty delighted to hear that he's looking at the structural foundation of this issue, because we can't just keep putting on a Band-Aid and every year or 2 or 3 we have another $20 million deficit. So the idea of actually looking at all these things that are great programs in most cases, if not all cases, that are funded with one-time money but costing us ongoing money, that doesn't work. So if we're going to keep those programs, any or all of them, we need to find a way to fund them where everything that's actually promised is promised. That way the students can know what they can count on, the parents, the community can know what they can count on, the bargaining units can count on this district. And anyhow, we're very happy that the superintendent has tried to take care of this issue as a structural issue and really take care of the structural deficiencies. And you can count on us to continue to work with the district in a collaborative manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dorian.
If I could just add, our primary goal is to make sure the district succeeds, because if the district doesn't succeed, then we've all failed. And then as far as the last presentation went, SEIU is happy to help set up tabling if we need to start registering voters at high schools. Thanks.
Thank you, Ian.
Hello, my name is David Bain. I'm the Executive Director for NAMI Sacramento. It's the local affiliate for the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and we help people who are living with mental illness and the family members of people with mental illness. I'm here because this is also Suicide Awareness Month, And I've got a report which I'll share with Alex to pass out to you guys. And it talks about suicidal ideation. And it was a report that was done from 2013 to 2015. And basically it shows that California, this is about the average. Sacramento County, it's a little bit higher. And then in this school district, it's even a little bit higher than that. So there's a need here. There's some policy recommendations in here, such as setting policies, which meeting with Dr. Taylor today, sounds like the school district's heading in that direction, so thank you very much. It's a lot of work ahead of you. Appreciate that. Ensuring adequate funding for training for those who work directly with young people. And that's not going to be just teachers, but also counselors, janitors, lunch people from all levels to set a culturally competent work area, because kids need that even for their mental health issues or their family mental health issues. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Nunley.
Good evening. This is the first of only many right now. I'm sorry. Good evening, everyone. What I'm here, as I've said before on many of the board meetings that I've come to, I still want to bring back the issue of the high rates of suspensions for African American males. I still believe that it is something that should be on the board agenda every single board meeting. I think it's too important to just leave to a task force and not bring back again. So I ask that the board really consider putting that as an agenda item. I do appreciate that the board took the time and actually held a town hall. I thought that was wonderful, especially to bring in the actual authors of the report. I think it was very, very transparent, especially to the point of them saying Sacramento City is one of the highest as far as doing this. We are number 1,026 out of 1,026 districts in the state. You can't get any lower. And when it comes to it's too much money, well, how low do you have to go before you say, you know what, we need these types of things? So I again ask the board if you would please consider it as a standing agenda item. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nunley. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Enoch. I'm a parent at William Land Elementary School. I'm here to just request that the board and the district staff work with the parents of William Land to work towards a solution for the continuation of the William Land Mandarin Immersion program into the middle school and high school level. We've been here multiple times requesting a focus on just getting a class in the middle high level, and we've already have a cohort that's moved on to the middle school, and the MIP program is still not there. I've invited some parents to just speak and a few students just to communicate the urgency of this. We want to begin discussions as soon as possible because the school year is just, the next school year is just right around the corner, and we understand it takes time to get things going. So we're just really wanting to express our urgency of wanting to see things happen.
Thank you, Mr. Young.
Hi, good evening. My name is Amy, and I have a second grader in the Mandarin Immersion program. And I'm actually really proud because he's a second generation. I never thought my own child would go to the same school I went to as a kid, but there was no Mandarin Immersion program when I was there as a kid. So I want to first thank the board for your support of the Mandarin Immersion program. I'm here, just like all the parents, to ask for your continued support in extending the Mandarin Immersion program from an elementary level into junior high and high school setting. Research shows that immersion language programs give children a leg up academically and success in life regardless of one's socioeconomic or ethnic background. It increases the executive function in their brains, make them good critical thinkers, more competitive in the job market, fosters leadership, and promotes a greater understanding and appreciation of the diversity in this world. Regardless of research, we all can agree that the more hours you spend learning a language, the higher your fluency will be and the greater benefit you will gain. I can personally attest to that because I took 2 years of Spanish in high school and I didn't get very far. I wish I had more opportunity. And till this day, I can't roll my R's to save my life. I'm pleading with the board tonight to please implement the continuation of MIP into the junior high and high school setting. I, along with many parents, feel if we start and end at the elementary level, we would have undone all the hard work put in by our students, families, teachers, staff, and everyone who have stood behind it. We had our very first graduating class, like Enoch mentioned, who completed the whole 6 years of the program. And unfortunately, it also ended there for them. In conclusion, I feel we've planted the seed, we've seen the budding, but we won't see it fully bloom if we stop now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Brianna Kitcher. I'm a William Land Elementary Mandarin Immersion Program parent, better known as Symphony's mom, fourth grader you're about to meet. Watching my daughter learn this beautiful and difficult language has been wonderful. She beams with pride and self-worth when native Chinese speakers' jaws drop, hearing her speak nearly flawlessly, a language they don't expect to come from a little girl with blonde hair and big blue eyes. She has worked very hard over the past 5 years to succeed in her Mandarin studies. She knows being able to speak the #1 language of business will bring her many opportunities. Language, like many learned skills, must be used and practiced regularly to keep the ability. If an MIP class isn't offered at the junior high and high school levels, all of her hard work will have been for nothing. That will be 7 years, including the kindergarten, of dedication to the MIP program, 7 years of working with a Mandarin tutor weekly, 7 years of taking on the additional homework load. All of that will have been for nothing. I won't let that go to waste. Being part of the Sacramento City Unified School District has been wonderful, and I applaud all the fantastic programs this outstanding district has made happen. Our family wants nothing more than to see our child be part of it until she's off to college. However, we'll have no choice but to transfer if she can't continue with her Mandarin here. This year will be the second graduating class, as mentioned before, for our program, and they are moving on to middle school next September, and there still is nothing available at our feeder junior highs, Southern California Middle. I'm here to plead for the continuation of the MIP class and to get it now. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. My name is Virginia Tsai. I have a kindergartner and a second grader at William Land, and thank you for allowing us to kind of reiterate the same message. I'm here to urge you to move forward on the matter of continuing the MIP program after the 6th grade level on through high school. We are now in the 8th year of this extremely popular and successful MIP program at William Land Elementary. On the night before the kindergarten enrollment day, we still have parents lining up at midnight at William Land trying to get their kids in line to be in the lottery. I was here at the same forum 4 months ago explaining the importance of learning Mandarin Chinese. Last year, the inaugural class graduated, and it is amazing how much Mandarin they learned and their oral fluency. It's a real loss that that class did not have the opportunity to continue their Mandarin education through the Sacramento Public Schools. It is an unfulfilled promise that we gave them. I encourage you not to make this loss greater. The principal, Ms. Lee Carlson, and all the teachers and staff at William Land have worked so diligently to develop and improve the MIP curriculum. The students have enjoyed learning the language, and they're very, very successful. The vast majority of the students and parents wish to be able to continue their education at a higher level, and they support this endeavor. Our vision is to have our students become global leaders, and learning Mandarin Chinese is an integral part of this. To have the Mandarin immersion program stop at 6th grade, we're cutting short our commitment to truly advance their language skills. If we extend it, we can enable them to improve their Mandarin to the point where they can use it under a professional context. The language centers are still developing, and by stopping at 6th grade, we leave a very large unsatisfied gap in their education. I don't want to see the time and devotion of Principal Lee, the teachers and staff, and the students not be able to fulfill their full potential. So I feel the time is now to form that task force in order to prepare for this class graduating this year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, board members. My name is Larry Luong, and I too am a William Land Mandarin immersion parent. I have 2 children, a 3rd grader and a 5th grader in the program, and I've seen firsthand the benefits of what is essentially an accelerated learning program. You have children who are trying to master Mandarin, most of them this being their second language. This is not, it doesn't come natural for most of the children in there. They are required to do all of this Mandarin language training while taking on all of the math and language arts courses that are given to normal students. And so essentially you're having a group of students who are now trained in an accelerated program who will be taking that into the next stage of their academic careers. This is why I'm asking the board move forward with putting together this task force and moving forward with trying to set up the middle school program, because this is the next stage of allowing these children to flourish in this accelerated manner. As a parent who has seen firsthand how business works in the real world, these children who have this Mandarin language capability will have a leg up when they are vying for jobs, when they're trying to establish businesses that have ties to China or the Pacific Rim. And here in Northern California, our economy is interlinked with that region, and the more we can encourage this type of learning, the better our children will be, and the better our region will really be in this new economy where we are connected with all of our trading partners, which every day we hear in the news how the Trump administration is raising tariffs on trade with China. So I just encourage that the board move forward with this task force. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Symphony, and I'm a student at William Land Elementary. 你好，大家，我是艾月云，我在一个同学在威廉小学。The reason why I'm up here today is because I want to be able to go to middle school and continue the program to be able to continue the language of Mandarin. It gives me many ways to be able to exceed in life. Because one of my dreams is to become a CIA agent. And since Mandarin's one of the best languages to learn, I want to be able to continue that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Miria Young, and I'm a 6th grader at William Land Elementary. And I've been learning Mandarin for 7 years now. And I would like to share a story about how Mandarin has helped me throughout my life. So, me and my family took a trip to Taiwan, and we were ordering street food at the market. And my mom tried to use Cantonese to tell the salesperson what we wanted to eat. But unfortunately, the salesperson didn't know Cantonese. So I had to use my Mandarin and tell her what I wanted to order. And that night, we were able to have food for dinner. So as you can see, Mandarin has helped me throughout my life. And I know that everybody at William Land would really appreciate it if the Mandarin immersion program were continued throughout the years. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Rose Elliott. I'm a parent from John F. Kennedy High School. And first, I just want to say thank you to you all for doing what you do and being here month after month and serving our community and our schools. My son, Calvin Elliott, is a senior at John F. Kennedy. I am here with a group of parents of robotics students from John F. Kennedy. So you'll hear several of us speaking. And we're here to advocate for funding for a program that has existed at Kennedy for a number of years, the robotics program. Kennedy serves every socioeconomic group in our community, a wide diversity of students, a wide variety of abilities. What I would like you to keep in mind in terms of funding programs like robotics is these programs keep our kids engaged in school. They inspire our kids to come to school day in and day out for the 4 years that they're going to high school and help them see how they can succeed in life. My son wants to be a mechanical engineer. He's applying to colleges now. I have seen a new spark of life in him as he has joined the program this year for the first time. So please do consider, Mr. Green is a great instructor who inspires kids throughout the program. It doesn't matter where they come from and how engaged their parents are. We are lucky to have a large number of parents who are willing to do the fundraising, but we can't pay for that after-school salary for Mr. Green. So please do consider refunding this program even beyond our tenure in the program. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Cindy Kazee. Thank you, Superintendent Aguilar and Board, for allowing us to speak in front of you. I am representing the Kennedy robotic parents from Kennedy. We were here a few months ago to be recognized by your board with the SES for our achievement in going to the World Championships for robotics. I'm a small business owner. I'm a parent. I have a graduate and a senior at Kennedy. I'm a team sponsor. I'm the team manager. We, along with SES and Rosemont, have represented the school district on the international stage for robotics. We've had a number of achievements. This is Kennedy's 9th year in the program, yet each year we struggle for funding. And when we talk about funding, there are two sides of it. One is compensation for the instructors that my colleague so eloquently spoke about. We can't apply for grants. Grants don't fund salaries. The stipends that are issued to the coaches of robotics at our robotics program is a small part of the amount of time they invest. And it is in danger of not being funded for the future. We raise $35,000 to $40,000 a year to fund our program with supplies, materials, travel expenses. We cannot fund teacher salary. It's time to recognize the program for the contribution it makes for both the participants and for the representation that we put forward on a worldwide stage, and to recognize the importance of STEM funding and make it a permanent line item on your budget for funding compensation for the instructors for robotics. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, board members. My name is Kaylee Kazee. I am her senior that goes to Kennedy. I'm here on behalf of the students of the Kennedy Robotics. I want to tell you why we love what we do and what makes it important. I will tell you right now that this past season we put over 14,000 hours, student hours in total. That does not count any of our competitions. We put the work in both now and during our season. The reason I'm the only student here is because all the students are back at the shop training for the next competition season. And we typically stay there till around 10 o'clock at night on weekdays and come in on Saturdays to work on our robot. And it's not just like Lego robotics. It's real full-fledged machine shop robotics. We run our shop at a level that professionals run it. And it's all run by students. I myself, this past couple of months, have learned to run lathing machines. It's something that I as a senior have never done before, but I'm still here learning from this program. And I would love to invite any of you to come see our shop and see what we do, because we have professionals who come in and they're amazed by what we as students work to achieve. And it's something that we are all very proud of to be working in. And then even after robotics, all of our graduated seniors and alumni go on to colleges, go on to being engineers. We have people in mechanical engineering, materials engineering, people at Cal Poly SLO. We have someone who's majoring in aerospace engineering at Stanford on a full ride who graduated 2 years ago. And that kind of thing, the stuff that we do affects us our entire lives and increases the amount of people who go into STEM. We have people who come to Kennedy specifically for our robotics team. And that isn't just for us, this is for all of the other schools in our district that do robotics-related stuff. So it's very important to us and the students around us. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Melanie Hagee, and my son is a 11th grader at Kennedy. And I really didn't prepare anything to say other than Kennedy Robotics is the jewel in the crown of the STEM program, and it's what gets my son out of bed every day. So please consider it when you are funding programs. It is very important. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Wong. I am a parent of a student at the robotics program. This past 3 years, since my daughter's been in the program, I have seen amazing changes in her. In the beginning, she was supposed to go to West Campus, and when she convinced me to let her come to Kennedy because of the robotics program. At first, I was, in doubt. But when I visited the campus and saw all the machineries and the students working late at night, even into 10 o'clock, I was impressed. So I am so glad that I got her into this program. She is a senior now, and she's going to be going for mechanical engineering in college. So I think, as a state capital, a city of the capital of California, the Sacramento should be leading in these kind of high-tech training programs. The only way that we can is to provide a permanent funding for the teacher. And Mr. Green is amazing. Who would give above and beyond time, like 5-6 hours a day, or even into evenings, weekends, to train up the students, to give them such practical skills in life. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Justin Smith. My daughter is a junior at John F. Kennedy, and I'm here speaking regarding the robotics program. Really what we're asking is not a big ask. We're asking that rather than getting the same funding that we get year in and year out, we're asking that to be a permanent line item rather than having to hope that we'll have a team next year. It's not a big ask, and I know that you guys are committed to STEM, and the question isn't, are you going to be committed to STEM next year as well? Because you guys show our program off. Just last week, we had 7 states come in to visit our program to show it off. And the commitment's there. I'd just like to see a recognition so that we know that we'll have a team next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Good evening. My name is Scott Brown. I'm also a parent with a kid at Kennedy Robotics. I think I'm the last one you have to listen to this evening. I'm not going to repeat what has been said, but I did want to recognize, the level of effort our students do put in is typically 30 to 40 hours a week during competition season, starting in January. We do raise a significant amount of funds outside what the district and the local site supports, and they've been great. What we'd really like to see is not a new ask for new funds, but just a dedicated line for all robotics programs across the district. So that's Kennedy, McClatchy, SCS, and Rosemont. Pooling that money together into a single line item gives us some gravity in the budget and some sense of security that funding will be there from year to year. So this is Cindy's last year managing the team. I'm kind of on slate to take that over and looking at a budget of roughly $40,000 to $60,000 a year, depending on if we go on to Worlds. Knowing that our teacher is funded and that potentially there's funding for registration with FIRST would be a great sense of security as we plan for fundraising for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. I don't know if this will turn on. I'm not familiar with these documents very much. Do I see it or is it on? Can they see it? Thanks. So anyway, I've been teaching since 1986. For the bulk of my career here in Sac City Unified School District, the curriculum and instruction office ran with 2 people. And I don't think we can mention names. Can you if it's a compliment? I thought the lady running it did a really good job. This is your administrative curriculum office from this year. Sorry. And you've got 25 employees. So you've grown from 2 employees to 25. And that doesn't include between 8 and 15 teachers on special assignment. SCTA's right. You've got a real administrative bloat problem. In the frequently asked questions, though, I signed up for the budget updates. You've got sort of dueling press releases going on with SCTA. They put in a frequently asked question where you claimed that your administrative expenses are only a small portion of your basic grant or general fund money. That might very well be true. That's because you're rating categorical money for the administrative bloat. Anyway, the truth is you could cut out 3/4 of these people. Not a single student, parent, or teacher would notice a difference. Take a look at your administrative levels. Thank you very much.
Good evening, board members. Kenya Martinez, Coalition for Students with Disabilities. Tonight I want to tell you about how the Coalition with Students with Disabilities is partnering with ARC to put on an event to teach parents, caregivers, anyone who cares for a person with a disability how to advocate for themselves here in the district, outside the district, also at Alta Regional Centers, and any place that a person receives services. The event will be held October 13th this year, Saturday, between 1:30 and 4 p.m. We are also partnering with other organizations in Sacramento. I invite all board members to attend, and I hope that you will find it imperative to support and not ignore our community. Thank you.
Did you say that was here at the Cerna Center?
No, it's not at the Cerna Center. It's actually being held at Strategies to Empower People, which is located at 2330 Glendale Lane in Sacramento. And again, it's on October 13th, Saturday, 1:30 to 4 o'clock.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Barrios, are there any others?
No further public comments.
Thank you. Moving on to item 9, Board Workshop Strategic Plan and Other Initiatives. 9.1, Special Education Audit Update.
Mr. Wu, President Sitting Wu. I just had a quick comment before folks come up, just based on the public comment. I really appreciated the folks coming from William Land Elementary School and talking about the Mandarin Immersion Program. I think it is incumbent on the district for us to come up with to look at that situation. It's been some time now for us to look at the immersion programs, and I'd like to recommend that we have a discussion just at the administrative level about that and have further discussion. So I just wanted to thank them for taking the time to show up today.
Thank you. Similarly, I'd like to have a similar discussion on the robotics program, but that's for further future discussion. Thank you.
Member Wu, if I can just make an opening comment here before Dr. Taylor starts with her presentation updating our community on the work that has taken place since our last presentation to the board on this very important topic. I want to just thank everyone that is here on this agenda item, certainly because I want to just remind our community that the guiding principle that I brought to the district focused on equity, access, and social justice calls very explicitly that all students should have and will have an equal opportunity to graduate with the greatest number of post-secondary choices from the widest array of options. And I'm often struck at the venues that I'm at where people wonder what the all means in that statement. And what I find is that it's because we sometimes don't have high expectations for all of our students that I get those kinds of questions. And let me be very clear that when I mean all students, that includes every one of our students, including our students with special needs. Our goal is to make sure that we attack this issue from a very systematic lens. And I have tasked our team, and I hope that the public will be able to see how it is that we are looking to change outcomes for our students with special needs from a systems-based approach. So although the presentation may get a little bit into the weeds in terms of how we're trying to attack this issue, I want to make clear that what you'll hear today is how we are unpacking each of the 10 recommendations from the special ed audit by using just one example, recommendation 3, and that's really only being done in the interest of time so that the board can have an opportunity to have a discussion, ask questions of our staff related to any of the recommendations. And so please do not treat our emphasis on recommendation 3 as if it were a signal that we've only focused on one of the 10 recommendations. So I'm excited to hear about the work and share the work that our team and other members in the education community and our overall community have been supporting us with. So with that, I'll yield to Dr. Taylor.
Thank you.
All right, so good evening, Board Member Wu, Superintendent Aguilar, and members of the board. My name is Iris Taylor, and I'm joined tonight by Becky Bryant, our Director of Special Education and our SELPA Director. And tonight we're here to provide you with an update on the work that has been underway since May to address the audit recommendations. As the superintendent shared, this is very much a shared responsibility across the organization. And I just want to spend a minute and thank the staff that are here tonight, as well as the staff that are not here tonight, who represent various departments in the organization. Our special education management staff has done a phenomenal job in just coordinating and pulling together these audit recommendations and findings, as well as departments such as our tech services, technology services, our improvement and accountability. You'll see behind me, and thank you all for being here tonight, representatives from our student support services team, curriculum and instruction, as well as site leaders who've served on our work teams that have been working on these audit recommendations. So this has truly been a district-wide, a system-wide effort. I also want to spend a minute to thank our partners in this work, particularly just the thought leadership of CCEE, the California Collaborative on Educational Excellence, as well as the California Department of Education. And with us tonight, we have from SCOE, Michael Cass, who's really lent his thought leadership to helping us think about these recommendations. And then finally, I just want to express thanks to our Coalition for Students with Disabilities for meeting with us this evening, just again to be another set of eyes and perspective. People have been very close to this work over the years, who are very passionate about this work, to provide some inputs into the work that has been done thus far. So to start us, we always want to ground our work within our core value and our guiding principle. And this is one of those places where to hold true. This is systems work, right? And the inequities that we see for our students with disabilities is really grounded in the way that our system is designed. And so for our students to really see and actualize the guiding principle, our students with disabilities, then it really is requiring a system redesign, and that's what the work has been. So just to give you kind of an overview of tonight's presentation, we're going to start with just very quickly a brief review and overview of the Council of the Great City Schools audit, and spend some time talking about what we've been doing to move the work between May and now, what accomplishments have been achieved. We'll then share with you the theory of action framework that we have used to analyze just the current reality of the system, what's getting in the way, and what we need to do to move the work forward. And as Superintendent Aguilar has shared, we're going to do that through recommendation 3 as an example. Okay. We'll share with you some lessons learned, and then we'll end with next steps. So what we have been doing since May and June to move the work. First, if you'll recall, when we ended the meeting in May, shortly thereafter, Superintendent Aguilar convened a special education work team. Again, this cross-functional group of people to begin tackling these recommendations. Though that work team, though, has expanded beyond the special education work group or work team, and now includes the 6 that you see up here. So we have a multi-tiered system of supports work team, school climate, suspension and chronic absenteeism, a single plan for student achievement, that's what the SPSAA stands for, grade level readiness, and our specialty programs work teams. Another key advancement has been the development of an early indicator system. This is essentially an early warning system where we're able to look at who are our students who are most at risk in the areas of attendance, behavior, and academic performance, so that we can have cross-functional teams that are working to design interventions, logging those interventions, and then tracking students as response to those interventions. And that's going to be piloted in some of our schools, specifically around chronic absenteeism this school year. We provided professional learning to over 1,000 teachers, elementary teachers, and 312 secondary teachers through our ELA and ELD adoption with the lens and focus on the implementation of universal design for learning as a part of a core component of that curriculum. We've also adopted instructional materials for classes that serve our students with moderate to severe disabilities, again, as supplemental resources to help them access the ELA, ELD curriculum. Within the Council of the Great City Schools audit, there was a strong, I think in every single recommendation, there was a call out for the need for standardized work processes so that there's consistency and coherence in how people do their work. And so we have developed some standardized work processes within our Student Support Services Center, our school counseling, referrals, our emotionally disturbed assessment process, and our ERMS referrals and assessment process that we are using this year to help people understand what are the expectations for how those processes should occur. I think really key is the provision of professional learning to our site administrators in August. All mandatory professional learning for site leaders around the eligibility process, implementation of IEPs, monitoring and accountability for special education. And that will be a standing agenda item each month where students will engage in professional learning focused on meeting the needs of students with disabilities. Additional standard work processes, again, called out in the audit around IEP on-time completion and just keeping on track of if assessments and the IEP process is headed in the right direction. We were fortunate to work with our technology services department to help us develop a notification system whereby staff will receive notification about where IEPs are in process, site leaders and our parents will receive notifications as information is received and where their IEPs or students' IEPs are in process. And then finally, the last thing that I'd like to highlight tonight is the reorganization of our special education department, where we've now created essentially teams within the department to be supportive of our instructional assistant superintendents and lined up according to the schools that they support, or again, more coordinated services. So within parentheses, you'll see that R.1, that's just telling you which recommendation from the audit that particular item falls underneath. Okay, so we're just very excited about the work that has been able to be accomplished thus far. So recommendation 3 is where we'll ground you tonight. And we're using this as an example of the type of depth of thinking and analysis that have gone into each one of these recommendations over the past few months. And so when we take a look at recommendation 3, what it calls out for is really like this vision and this push towards an inclusive education setting, a setting where our students with disabilities participate and learn together with our students without disabilities and receive the appropriate supports to make academic and social emotional progress. That's essentially what we're talking about. What the audit called out for us to do is take a look at these areas. So our data analysis and review processes, the development of an inclusive education vision, clear written plans, clear written expectations, those standard work processes, differentiated professional learning for all people in the organization who impact and touch our students with disabilities, ongoing data analysis and the generation of reports around how implementation is going, and then finally, ensuring that implementation is monitored and that everyone is being held accountable. The students that call us, really, and this is just representative, these are representative of the students who are impacted by the fact that this recommendation is not fully in place currently. And so here we have 2 students within the organization who are being served in more restrictive environments, right? They are assigned to special day classes for students with disabilities. They're not in their home schools or in their school of choice. And then you see here the percentage of time that they're spending in the least restrictive environment. And of course, we want our students to spend the maximum amount of time in the least restrictive environment. So our theory of action for recommendation 3, okay, so this is, there were 5 guiding questions that we use to really unpack this particular recommendation. Again, true for all. The first was we wanted to put that recommendation in understandable terms, right? So what is the question that this recommendation is getting at? For recommendation 3, the question is the district ensuring that our students with and without disabilities are participating and learning together in the same classrooms? We wanted to think about, okay, so what are some ways that we would gather evidence, or what are some metrics and indicators and questions that we would track around this recommendation? So questions that come up are things like, well, how much time do our students with and without disabilities spend learning in the same classroom? Are we able to know that? Are students with disabilities meeting and are exceeding our state standards? Are we able to know that? How many of our students with disabilities are performing on grade level, and are they making progress towards grade level standards? Are students with disabilities making progress towards graduation? Things like, are students with disabilities graduating, and are they graduating A through G eligible, and how many of them are? How many of which of our students with disabilities are being suspended? And then finally, how many of them are persisting to graduate within 5 years? Okay. and wanting to know that information disaggregated by race, by ethnicity, by grade, and by disability areas. Question number 2 is asking us then to look at the recommendation, and is there identified board policy around this recommendation specific to it? And what we found as we looked at our board policies is, yes, there is a board policy that talks about educating students in the least restrictive environment. However, there's some challenges with it, and we feel that there needs to be some revision to make it more reflective of the vision and goals that we have for these students. So some of the challenges with it is that, it speaks to the minimal expectations of the federal law. It establishes the need for supportive and school classroom environments, but it does not speak to things like students being educated in their school of choice or in their school of residence. So we are just going to propose some revisions to that to be more reflective of the type of environment that we want to see. So here you'll see more language around them being full members of their school communities and participating in social and extracurricular activities with the same access as their peers, and understanding and cooperative and mutually respectful environments. And to the greatest extent possible that they're included in the general education setting, in schools of residence and schools of choice, that we're not moving them all around the district in order to receive services. So Becky Bryant will come speak to you about the specific actions for this recommendation that the district has outlined in its implementation plan.
Good evening, board members and superintendent. The next step in the theory of action is for us to determine if in our current status, current reality, if you will, are we able to find the information that we need to get the data to see if we are doing what we say that we're going to do, if we're making progress with our students. And we really had to sit and look at that very carefully. We have a special education information system that most SELPAs throughout the state of California contract with to house our data around IEPs and extract data from that on a biannual basis to submit that to the state of California. So when we're looking at things like how much time a student spends in general education, we can see that they spend a portion of their day there, but we don't know what for. So we know that we need some more data around that to make better decisions about our students. We also, we know that we need accountability measures also around implementing these recommendations. And finally, we know that we need written expectations for classroom instruction and protocols for assessing the implementation, and it needs to be updated. We have not monitored it as closely as we needed to. We haven't communicated those expectations to the site in a systematic manner, and those are some of the things that we are addressing this year. So the next part of the theory of action is if we don't have the things we need right now, what do we need to do? What steps are we taking or will we take to be able to answer the questions about whether or not our students have the opportunity to learn with students without disabilities? So we know that our current reality is not where we want to be, and we've developed actions that we're going to take and that we want in order to implement the recommendations of the council report. The following is kind of a graphic organizer for us. It's a calendar of steps that we are going to take in order to implement our recommendations. And so the first thing we're going to do is ask our school sites to collaborate with the instructional assistant superintendents to work with site leaders and staff to determine their site's capacity for moving towards either a learning center model or more inclusive settings for students with disabilities. We're going to use the sub-elements in the Performance and Targeted Action Index that have been developed specific to students with disabilities to analyze achievement and growth, such as grade level on-track readiness rate, grade level status growth, rate of suspensions, percent of time students spend in general education, and what they're doing while they're there. Students who, due to achievement, behavior, and attendance, are in need of intervention. That is our early their EIIS system. And at the high school level, we want to track graduation on-track status, number and percent of students who are on track for A to G requirements, and then those students also who persist and go on to graduate with a high school diploma. We will establish expectations of what we will look for, and we will expect to see on our school sites in the way that sites use differentiated instruction, universal design for learning, in lesson design, how our English learners students are served, and how related services are provided, just to name a few. And we're doing that in collaboration with the instructional assistant superintendents, and then we will be able to go on and determine what supports from district staff are needed to help school sites move the work forward. The next actions are around satisfaction tools or perception tools around inclusive practices or more inclusive settings. And we've used these in the past, but they have not been used consistently, or we've not always gotten the participation that we needed. So we're going to revise those tools, and we're going to develop additional tools to collect perception data from parents, staff, and students to determine if we really are improving our practices, both in terms of IEP participation and satisfaction and spending more time in general education. Finally, there's going to be a level of data review to analyze if we're doing what we said we were going to do, and if we've communicated our progress on a regular basis to our community. And then the final piece of this in a theory of action framework is to put real students at the forefront of the work that we do. You'll see from this slide that both of these students receive special education services for mild to moderate disabilities in a special day class. There's not a class at their home school, so they have to leave their community and ride a bus to another school to get their services. As you can see, both of these students spend very little time in general education and very little time with their peers without disabilities. This is an illustration of why this recommendation and the actions encompassed in it are so very important. We've learned some lessons along the way since we started this work this summer. We fully understand that we need to better communicate and be transparent about the work that we're doing and provide communication about that work more frequently and in ways that meet our families' needs. Our work needs a wider array of stakeholders to provide their perspectives to our work. We've come to value our cross-disciplinary work teams. It has provided for some very vigorous discussions and new ideas about how to improve our system. The various expertise has been invaluable. We intend to report progress on a more regular basis in terms of the movement of our work and the progress made by our students. Finally, rebuilding our CAC will be a key factor in all communication and implementation of these plans going forward.
We'll just close with some next steps as we move the work forward. As Becky said, we're going to gather feedback and input about the theory of action. We really are presenting these to you as draft documents because we recognize the need to engage a wider array of stakeholders and providing inputs into the plans that we've shared with you tonight. We want to identify key points in the school year where we come back on a regular basis to report to the board on our progress with these recommendations. And then again, developing those related indicators. So we've shared with you some of the indicators that we want to track, but then there are other related indicators that we're going to want to identify to help us understand and see if the recommendations are being implemented as designed. Our communication protocols, we're going to continue to refine those with the assistance of our instructional assistant superintendents to assist sites in providing quality services to students with disabilities. And then construct a plan for the development and gradual implementation, as Becky shared, about this concept of a learning support center model for more inclusive educational settings for our students. And then we're going to continue like the relationship between this work with our school climate, suspension, chronic absenteeism work team, and working on supports and culture and climate, just welcoming environments for our students is also a next step for us. So that concludes the presentation, and we will take public comment and then respond to questions.
Thank you, Dr. Leo. Are there any public comment?
Yes, we do. If you could come up in order when you hear your name, please. Grace Trujillo, followed by Renee Webster Hawkins, Angie Sutherland, Cecile Nunley, Mona Tawatow, John Perryman, Angel Garcia, and Joseph Berry.
Good evening. I'm not sure where Grace went. She'll be here, I'm sure, in a moment. I'm Renee Webster Hawkins, and I'm a parent of 2 kids in the district and also a former member of the CAC. And I want to first commend the obvious hard work and passion that Dr. Taylor and the special ed staff and team put into the thought and the development of the drafts that are before you tonight. Just briefly, it's a lot because the scope of the audit was broad and deep. And we look forward to future conversations after we've had a chance to digest it as well. A couple of key points, though, and which they spoke about and which Superintendent Aguiar, you spoke about as well, and that's the issue of inclusion. And buried deep in the audit on page 60, there's a common message, and this is one of their findings, and it says the school system continues to fight the divide between special and general education with no clear single message to reinforce a collaborative approach to delivering instruction, enhancing teacher capacity, and meeting student needs. Obviously, that was before the district had the benefit of your leadership, Superintendent, but we know that that divide still persists, and that is the ultimate challenge. And so in addition to all of the processes and frameworks that are a lot of thought is being put into, we care about the students and what's affecting them. In the 18 months since we had the audit, I can't even begin to think about the students that have dropped out, the students that have been harmed due to the lack of action. There's some low-hanging fruit that I think that can be put into place now, even while the district team is more formally and systematically addressing these issues. There's policies around suspension that must be addressed. There's mental health services that must be provided. So I do encourage an assessment of a dual track so that the low-hanging fruit to meet the obvious and most critical needs are implemented rapidly with urgency. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Webster Hawkins. Mr. Hill.
Good members of the board, and superintendent. I know it's been a while. I think I was talking about the other day, it's been 12 years off and on. And obviously, first I have to address the issues at home and preparing for the future. You know, I always tell people, I think we're ready for another recession, so I had to take care of all my financial needs and prepare for the next dip. But anyway, I'm really glad that one of the key things and the key factors of the audit, and thank you for sharing it with us and meeting with us today, I think as a group, as a coalition, we formed it to help and to make sure that the audits that were the recommendations were taken into account. Like Renee said, there's so many key points. The key thing here is working together. And I think I keep on talking, we always talk about all these wonderful strategies and all these things we could implement, and we say we need money, but no. I think what we have is working together. That's the key thing. I think one thing we were going back and forth with Renee one time, we were talking about climate. And she said, Grace, hold on. We need to talk, what climate? There's a climate between kids and the climate between teachers, principals, and administration. And I said, no, I'm talking about that climate. I'm not talking about the kids. That kid climate is completely different. That could be easily resolved. It's so funny. My younger son, now he's going to Jesuit, and he went to Phoebe Hearst. Then after that, he went to St. Mary's, and now he's at Jesuit. He said, Mom, I could tell what you're talking about climate. He could sense the climate between the different people. When they truly, truly is working together or truly not. And it's funny because in the private schools, as all my fellow members that have been in the district have gone to the private sector. And actually, it's cheaper to run a school in the private sector than it is public. But the key thing, I think, what's lacking there, and it's working together, is the climate. Climate among the people is the teachers, administrators, and the people working together. Because with that in mind, doesn't matter what policies, procedures are in place, it doesn't work. So thank you.
Sutherland.
Hello, everyone. I'm Angie Sutherland. I'm also a member of the Coalition for Students with Disabilities. And I want to thank you for having this presentation on your agenda. We have really been anxiously awaiting an appropriate response to the audit. And it's no secret that our coalition has not seen students with disabilities included in the district's guiding principle of equity, access, and social justice. We need to make sure that all students see themselves in this principle, and all needs to mean all. So I appreciate what you said, Superintendent, tonight about that. So we didn't have a chance to fully read into everything since we just met today with the special ed team and Dr. Taylor. Thank you for meeting with us. I like that it's not a set plan, but it's draft, and they're looking for feedback. So I hope that there's going to be a wider array of stakeholder engagement on this and continue these discussions. I came here with fresh ears today to listen, and I look forward to continuing the collaboration. It's all very technical information that you heard tonight and that we received. But I want to thank you, Becky, for bringing it back to the students and showing the students in the special day classes. If that would have been shown in the first presentation on the guiding principle, I think this level of trust would be a little bit stronger for us. But it wasn't, students with disabilities were not included in that presentation. I do appreciate seeing timelines, but I don't want to lose sight of all the key issues, like the over-identification of students with intellectual disability who are English learners, the autistic students in separate schools, the suspension rates for African American students. We need to see the meat on those issues, and I am a little concerned about the project management and the capacity in our district to manage this complex project with all the existing responsibilities that staff have. So and also the capacity of the school sites to monitor this information and provide timely interventions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sutherland. Ms. Nunley.
Good evening again. I just have a couple of things, so I'll be very quick. I really wanted to say thank you to staff because on recommendation number 2 that's in the packet, it talked a lot about professional learning, and in particular, it talked about school psychologists and special education and general education teachers and admin. And I saw in the presentation something that I love to see, which is numbers, since I have a tendency to be a numbers person. And you guys actually put in there the number who did receive training. And I see that it's 1,000, over 1,000 elementary, 312 secondary. The only thing that I do wonder is out of how many? Because is that even 50%? And I'm not so sure. The other thing I didn't see in, it talked about professional learning for school psychologists. It doesn't mention that in here. Maybe it occurred. I just don't know. The other thing in looking at the actual recommendations, not just the presentation, I believe on recommendation 6, it talked about the recruitment because recruitment of special ed professionals is difficult. And from what I understand, it's difficult for all districts. It's not just difficult for Sac City. So I kind of wondered, why did they talk about establishing a recruitment advisory committee? That just seemed to be another level that I'm not so sure would be effective if everybody is struggling with recruitment and we all try and be innovative. Is that just going to put more stress on staff to work with a committee when they could be spending their time really trying to do the recruitment? Because everybody is struggling with that recruitment. So those are just my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nunley. Mr. Perryman.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm John
Not
Perryman.
yet. Still the evening.
Got more documents for you. So, again, does this turn on? Yeah, almost got it. All right. So this is from your board packet. And it's about budgets. Again, I'm not critical of any of the special ed plan or anything, just more budget criticism. I filed a formal complaint against the district for misuse of supplemental and concentration grant money, misuse of Title I money. One of the small line items there was using supplemental and concentration grant money for special ed nurses and psychologists. The district did not respond to the complaint within the 60-day deadline, so I guess I have to go to the CDE and ask them for direct intervention. Now, this is the complaint I feel the worst about. Spending money on special ed kids, it's not immoral, but it's probably illegal, I think. If federal law guarantees the needed special ed services for all kids, you can't claim it's an additional service as per the guiding language on supplemental and concentration grant money. You can't claim it's an increased service. And so I think you have a technical problem. And so it's only $5 million out of $105 million. But my guess is that it's an illegal expenditure out of supplemental and concentration. Thank you for your time.
Ms. Tawatow.
Good evening, board members and Superintendent Aguilar. My name is Mona Tawatow. I am with the Western Center on Law and Poverty and join in the earlier comments of coalition members and others about the audit and the report this evening. I also want to say we appreciate the report by Dr. Taylor and Ms. Bryant and the materials that were shared on the website accompanying this agenda item. There are a number of questions we have about some of those, some of the data indicators, including how, for example, one of the special education operations sub-elements that talks about disproportionately identifying students who are disproportionately identified as having emotional disturbance, precisely how will that be determined? And I imagine that, those measures or that description criteria might be in other materials forthcoming or, that might not have been shared this evening for time purposes. But the one sort of overarching question that we have is regarding these new data indicators that the district will be using to monitor. Who will be responsible for doing that data monitoring, and will it be done at the school level or the district level? And really importantly, will the person who's doing that have the power to make interventions and make changes if the data shows that students are having problems? So that's one thing I didn't hear this evening and was not in the materials and would appreciate hearing about. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, board members, superintendent. My name's Angel Garcia, and I am a parent and a member of the Coalition for Students with Disabilities. There was a lot discussed tonight. I'm not going to go into each recommendation. I'm going to talk about something that we talked about at our meeting earlier with Iris. So we know that change is going to take a long time, and we've waited a long time. My son's now 16, and he's been harmed in the meantime of this waiting. One of the things we talked about and Renee mentioned was low-hanging fruit to ensure that we're not, further harming students with disabilities as we plan. This is going to take a lot of planning time. One of the areas of focus in the conversation and in the audit was educationally related mental health services. In 2011, AB 114 changed the process by which students in special education receive mental health services. Previously, under AB 3632, county mental health departments provided these services. However, realignment under AB 114 required that all California school districts be solely responsible for ensuring that students with disabilities, as designated by their IEP, receive the mental health services necessary to benefit from the special ed program. There are three ways that districts can meet AB 114 requirement. The first is school districts can hire mental health professionals that are credentialed or licensed social workers, psychologists, and provide these services through those staff. School districts can also contract with community mental health agencies or other qualified professionals to provide these services, or school districts can contract with county mental health departments to provide the services. So I'm not sure what the solution here is. Currently, the school district utilizes school social workers to provide educationally related mental health services, which is inappropriate. If the solution is and the goal is for the district to hire these school social workers to implement ERMs, there needs to be a lot of groundwork that needs to happen, including certifications and increasing subject matter expertise. There are two issues that I can really identify by this. So one, the district gets Medi-Cal reimbursement for ERM services for students who are receiving ERM services. And I'm sorry, I really need to continue just so you can understand what I'm saying. However, this service is not transparent in the district, accountable, or evidence-based by way a community or county-based service would be. I am an MSW. I primarily work in case management, career counseling, advocacy, policy, and legislation. That's my background. Even though I hold that degree, I've adhered to a code of ethics that would not allow me to just go into another job to implement ERMs. One of the things that we signed up for as social workers was competence. Social workers should provide services and represent themselves as competent only within the boundaries of their education, training, license, certification, consultation received. Social workers should provide services in substantive areas or use intervention techniques, approaches that are new to them only after engaging in appropriate study, training, and consultation. I can go on and on. But there are two areas. We're getting public dollars reimbursed for students, which a lot of our students have Medi-Cal, and we're utilizing school social workers to do that who are not effectively trained to implement a clinical service like ERMs. And this is coming from an MSW who is not able to implement ERMs myself. So please look at what you're doing, and while you're planning for this, the low-hanging fruit would say contract this out to applicable people, and then if the goal is to utilize school social workers, prepare them. Because you're setting them up for failure, and they're not adhering to the code of ethics that we utilize as social workers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia.
We have a comment from Mr. Berry, and then one more public comment from Nikki Malevsky.
Okay. Hello, board. My name is Joseph Berry. Just quick, I won't be long. I want to say thank you, first of all, for purposing me to the work and providing me with the council report relatively early in the process. I acknowledge that. Thank you. I just got one quick question. I wanted to know, in any way possible, the date on the documents and the presentation. I know that this is a very time-sensitive matter in a way, and it's evolving, so it'd be important, I think, that the public know, like, at what, are we presenting last month's data or where we're at, or is this like as of yesterday, or, is it? So that was a question I had. Also, just want to make a quick comment on what I saw, even just from the recommendation number 3, and that is that I see a lot about assessment. I see a lot about alignment, even looking through the documents on the other recommendations, and that's good. We need that, definitely. I don't see a lot about academia and furthering understandings of disability and even organizational structure in a way that will help, alleviate this issue much more effectively. Thank you for your time. That's it.
Thank you. Ms. Molesky?
I literally have to run here from back to school night. So there's a lot here to comment on and consult about and collaborate on. This topic is something that teachers are very, very excited to work with the district on. I just felt the need to comment on the academic side of this report and the responses here. The reviewers found that academic, strategic, and intensive interventions, currently SCUSD does not have increasingly intensive interventions and support available system-wide for students. Now the MTSS model, as you can see, there's many different flow charts of it, and I'm sure you've all seen it. MTSS is an overall umbrella where response to intervention, PBIS, both social, emotional, and behavior interventions are within that, and they intertwine and intermingle and impact each other. And the multi-tiered system of support, you may have seen a triangle, both when talking about response to intervention and when talking about multi-tiered system of support. So as you can see, tier 1 is basically in the classroom, things that are done in the classroom to impact all students, universal design for learning, differentiated instruction, all in the general ed academic setting with the regular teacher. Then you have your level 2 of interventions, your more intensive targeted interventions. And then you have level 3 for those kids who haven't responded to tier 1 or tier 2, but tier 3 would really be individual services. And this is before you would consider kids for special education. And these tiers are very, very important. And when you look further at the report, opportunities for improvement, they stated that we do not have increasingly intensive academic and social emotional interventions and support available system-wide to our students. Title I schools have access to some supplemental interventions, but other schools must rely on their own creative means to address this and address our students who are falling behind. Your recommendation, one that was been prepared it's the only section that talks about MTSS. It talks a lot about social, emotional, and behavioral supports, and only one little section talks about those academic interventions. Provide professional learning for elementary teachers and secondary teachers on the new ELA curriculum, which of course, right? Professional learning focused on universal design to accommodate and differentiate instruction, which is something we've been working on for over a decade. Differentiating instruction has been our mantra for years. Teachers create their lesson plans every day with a little section about each way they're going to teach the lesson slightly differently or present it slightly differently to certain students so that they can access the materials. What we do not have is tier 2 and tier 3 interventions. And I implore you not to move forward without having true tier 2 and tier 3 interventions as part of your plan. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Molesky. Are there any other public comment?
No further comments.
Thank you, Mr. Barrios. Any comments from my colleagues? This is an information item. Vice President Minnick.
Thanks. I just had a couple quick questions, and I don't know, Dr. Taylor, if you're able to answer it right now, but I was concerned by Ms. Garcia's comment about use of social workers and what's within the parameters of their work. And I was wondering if you could maybe address that, or if that's something we have to come back and revisit another time.
Thanks, Brian.
I can address that. Our educationally related mental health services do incorporate the use of school social workers, as well as also the student support services department also uses school social workers. We do have some social workers on staff that are LCSWs and MFTs that are licensed. However, they don't work in that scope due to the way that the job description is written. So the focus is on the ERMs is to support students so that they can gain access to their educational environment. And so we do acknowledge that there are times when students need more. And sometimes those are reasons that our students have to go to non-public school because there's a higher level of therapy available to them. We have students who we have had to place in residential treatment centers because they were their mental health issues were so serious that we had to attend to them. And so it's not just having school social workers. There's an array of services in the ERMS setting. Some of our schools and social workers run small groups. I know on the student support side, they do a lot of that. We try to work in conjunction that they do a lot of the early triage, and then as the students, because they do receive services, that is one of our related services, and then we serve the children from there.
Okay. Thanks. I want to make sure that we're at least all on the same page and we knew what our current situation is. My other question was just, and I stepped out for a minute, so forgive me if I ask a question that you already answered, but around the new community advisory committee, do we have a timeline for that and next steps, and where are we at in that process? Because I know that one, it's mandated, and two, it's really important to make sure we have those voices. And I appreciate that you've included the Coalition for Students with Disabilities in your conversations today. I just want to make sure that we are moving forward quickly in solidifying this committee.
So the meeting, the first meeting of the year, is next week on the 25th of September. Okay, so we are, we're convening, and that'll be the first meeting, and the elections are in October, would be held in October. November.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. They would be in October.
October. So,
and if I remember correctly from our last meeting, that there was a notification sent home with parents, with students in our special ed programs.
yeah, so we prepared a toolkit for each school site for principals to use and distribute at back to school nights, as well as distribute to their parents with information about the CAC meeting dates translated into the various languages of the district. And then phone calls have recently gone out as well.
Great. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? I note that this is an information item, and this is, let me just say before we move on to 9.2, that this is not an excuse for having to go through the Council of Great City Schools audit, but I'm glad that we are moving forward, and I will make this statement because I do this every February, March when I'm in Washington, D.C. Congress in adopting the Individuals with Disability Education Act said that they were going to fund us at 40% level, and they have never funded us at the 40% level. So we do what we can with the money that we have, and I'm fortunate that I serve on a district that we continue to move forward, and I will still continue to carry the fight in Washington, D.C. So I thank you for your efforts. Item 9.2, approve local control and accountability plan, LCAP Parent Advisory Committee nominations. Mr. Harris, Ms. Morrison.
Good evening, Acting President Wu and board members and Superintendent Aguilar. It's my pleasure tonight. I'm Vincent Harris in our Continuous Improvement and Accountability Office, and I'm joined by Kathy Morrison, our SIPSA and LCAP coordinator. And tonight we're just going to take you through a presentation really oriented around the LCAP PAC, Parent Advisory Committee nominations. Before Kathy takes you through, or Ms. Morrison takes you through the actual presentation, I just wanted to make mention that we've definitely heard your feedback and community feedback about student engagement with the LCAP PAC. And so we've got a couple of ideas that we're still fleshing out, but we hope to implement within the next month or so. One, Ms. Morrison's actually approached the Met about an intern, student intern joining her and working through kind of thinking about student engagement in kind of a strategic way. And so we're actually looking to have that be a real project and really leveraging some expertise there. And then our youth development team has actually approached some of our internal youth development groups about creating kind of to some degree, an ad hoc student group that will push into the LCAP PAC meetings as appropriate. We still are fleshing out the ideas, but more to come probably the next couple of weeks in terms of some ideas about really increasing student engagement with the LCAP PAC. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Morrison.
Thank you. Good evening, Vice President Wu, board members, Superintendent. Tonight is the appointment of the LCAP Parent Advisory Committee. A Parent Advisory Committee is required by California Education Code. The committee composition, appointment process, and the structure are unchanged from previous years. Each board member and the superintendent will have 2 nominations. The role of the committee is also unchanged. Throughout the year, committee members will have opportunities to review data, understand implementation of programs and activities, and learn about the LCAP. This is the 4th appointment cycle for the LCAP PAC, but it's the first time board members will appoint members to staggered terms. This fall only, members are appointed to a 2-year term or a 1-year term. Next fall, we will replace half of the committee, 8 members, to a 2-year term, ultimately ensuring a mix of veterans and new faces. This year's application was available for 3 weeks at the start of the school year. The board office coordinated the communication with board members, and the first meeting of the LCAP Parent Advisory Committee will be September 24th, which is the first meeting date we have had since we have had an LCAP. The PAC will meet monthly throughout the year, and we provide a tentative list of topics. And at this point, I will turn the presentation back to board members to announce their appointments.
Okay. I can't find my list, but I know where mine.
Would you like to look at mine?
Oh, there it is. Okay. Can we? What's the preference of the? That's real hard. Okay, Area 1.
Area 1, my 2-year term appointee, Catherine Horiuchi. My 1-year term member, Alex Zuko.
Thank you. Area 2.
Thank you. Area 2, my 2-year term appointee is Susanna Cohen, and my 1-year term appointee is incumbent LaShanya Brazel.
Thank you. Area 3.
Area 3. My 2-year appointee is Christine Shelby, and my 1-year appointee is Andrew Maloof.
Area, what comes after 3? 4.
All right. My 2-year appointee, because I want to give her more opportunities to come to the podium, Cecile Nunley. And my 1-year appointee will be Eldon Hernandez.
Area 5.
First, I just want to say that there were a lot of applicants that actually apply for Area 5. And actually, that's very encouraging. And although I can't appoint all of the applicants, I also just want to say that aside from the 2 that I'm going to appoint tonight, I'm also going to do follow-up to the applicants who applied, because I don't think that just the LCAP alone is a space where you can actually also make change in the district. We also have our DLAC, we have our CAC, we have our school site councils, which I feel like some of these parents who did apply, they definitely can get involved at the site level as well. And so I just also wanted to encourage our parents who don't get appointed tonight that there are other ways to also get involved with the school district. My 2 appointees for the 2-year term for Area 5, I would like to appoint community organizer and parent in our school district, Chinwell Rhodes, who have 5 children in our school district. He's a young African-American community organizer who speaks fluent Spanish, and so I'm incredibly excited about him serving on the LCAP. My 1-year term appointment is Frank DeYoung. He has been part of LCAP since the beginning and has an incredible, has lots of knowledge and institutional knowledge on Sac City's LCAP structure and our teams and the folks that's been part of it. And so I'm incredibly proud of all of the folks that have served on Area 5 LCAP, and I look forward to working with my 2 LCAP appointees. I'm also going to reach out to both of you and say, let's make sure that we stay consistent, because Area 5's LCAP have always shown up and been part of the LCAP process and have been active. And I'm extremely proud of my appointees, and I know that the 2 that I've appointed is going to put their heart, mind, soul, and spirit next year. And I'm just so proud. So that's it.
Thank you. Area 6. Oh, thank you. For the 1-year term, I'm selecting Tony Tinker, who is a current incumbent. And for the 2-year term, I'd like to thank, who is here in the audience, Ms. Renee Webster Hawkins. Thank you for your future service. Area 7 is President Ryan, who is not here, so she doesn't get a pick. But she does send her condolences.
I'll pick 2 more.
She won't be here to appoint her selections to the LCAP PAC personally, and asked me to read her selections. So in reviewing the list of highly qualified LCAP PAC applicants, she sought to ensure that her selections further promoted the principles of the LCAP funding local control funding formula. So that is why she'd like to appoint Katie Smith to the 2-year term and Vanessa Flores to a 1-year term. Ms. Smith is a foster parent and a parent of a child with special needs. Additionally, she's a social worker by trade and will be able to bring that experience to the table in order to better impact the trajectory of our students. Ms. Flores is coming from Ethel I. Baker, which an often underrepresented school that has a high level of income families and English language learners. President Ryan thought it's critical to ensure that she brings her voice to the table as she can help advocate for not only Baker students, but similar students across the district. For all of our appointees, President Ryan wants to encourage you all to ensure that we continue to put the focus on students through a lens of equity, access, and social justice. Again, she wants to thank everyone for applying to the LCAP PAC and encourage those who did not receive an appointment to look for other additional opportunities to provide input to the district. Your voices are valuable and critical. And last but not least, Superintendent Aguilar.
Thank you, Member Wu. For the 2-year term, I'm appointing Miguel Cordova, and for the 1-year term, I'm appointing Kay Seifon.
Are there any public comments, Mr. Barrios?
Yes. There are 3 public comments. John Perryman, followed by Karen Sweat and Cecile Nunley.
Good evening again, ladies and gentlemen. I just wanted to start off by complimenting the Parent Advisory Council. I think it takes a huge level of dedication to show up and read through those budget documents and do that type of analysis. And I think that's a really tough job, and I think it's a thankless job. I would recommend some improvements in process. The Sacramento County Office of Education and its PowerPoint for training for parent advisory committees recommends that you have a specific day or two on the agenda, noted in minutes, where you closely examine centralized use of Title I money and centralized use of supplemental and concentration grant money. That was not evidence in the meeting notes that I could see over the past year. Now, meeting notes are not complete. I wasn't there, and maybe they did engage in that close analysis. It just wasn't evident. Anyway, that was my short comment. I considered applying, but the truth is I'm fully capable of intemperate speech and throwing the occasional metaphorical Molotov cocktail. They're probably better suited. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perriman. Ms. Sweat.
Karen Sweat, Making Sense Work. The first thing I'd like to ask for is if tomorrow, Mr. Barrios, you could put these names on the district website. Liz Guillen isn't here tonight. She wanted me to tell you she's sorry she couldn't make it because she has some comments about the LCAP procedure. We're both very pleased that you've got staggering terms. We want to commend the team. We think that they've worked really hard. We're quite excited about this. But again, if you could put these names up on the website as soon as possible, because she asked me to bring them home, and I didn't catch any of them. Oh, no, I had Frank on one side and Cecile on the other. I got those 2 names. So speaking of timeliness, what I'm really concerned about, and I have to reference the letter from SCOE about holding the public hearing on the new budget and the need for the budget and the LCAP to be together, to match. Is this new committee going to be coming together? Can they have an input into this budget? I just don't see how this is going to work, because it is our understanding that the LCAP must match this new budget. Don't really see how this is going to work. Oh, and one other thing on timely posting. You're about a year and a half behind on the org chart. Once again, that's a really important piece of communication. 1 year, just one whole year? Oh, I stretched the truth a bit. So it'd be nice to get that up so we can kind of keep up with who we need to contact when we want to contact somebody. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Nunley?
Didn't start. This one will just be real quick. Thank you very much for the appointment. The only thing is the budget development. You guys have it scheduled for November 26th. I might make a recommendation that be moved up to the October. Main reason why is because the Business Services Office is going to be in the thick of doing first interim. That probably is going to put a strain on them, as well as I just like to see the budget development moved up a little bit earlier. I think it's more reasonable. So just a recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nunley. This is an action. Are there any more public comment?
No further comments.
Okay. Discussion by my colleagues. Vice President Minnick.
Thank you. So I just wanted to say well, congratulations to all the appointees, or condolences, depending on how you want to look at it. But to the staff, I think it was a great move in recruiting an intern from the Met High School to work on student engagement. it's no secret I'm a fan of the school, parent of 2 Metsters, and just the process of having a young person be intimately involved in the process of recruiting young people for this, I think is going to be really valuable to us as an organization, because it's sometimes it's rough for us old folks to really get the word out in the right way. Did I offend you? I'm sorry.
Yeah. You're not old.
But I'm really excited about that, and I think that's going to be great. And I know that there's a couple, a few ideas floating around about how we're going to utilize students and make sure that we have authentic student voice. And I know one of those is, like you said, a group of young people and kind of pushing in and rotating through. In a perfect world, we would have a consistent same students at every meeting. I know that's probably not realistic given the constraints on a lot of our high school students. But I just want to make sure that as we go through this process, that we really put a really close attention to the importance of consistency. So if we have a group of, say, 10 students or 15 students that are rotating in and out, that we make sure that we have a structure in place so they're informing each other. And so maybe we have students do a couple meetings in a row, and they stagger them as well, so that there's always so at any point in the process, the student that's there there's one student that's been at the last meeting, so we can make sure that process, or some other type of process, so we can make sure that we do have those young people with a consistent voice. And the other piece is I just want to make sure as we move forward, to make sure we get that student voice articulated here at these meetings. When you do report back to the board, I want to make sure that they get the opportunity to be heard as well. But thank you, and thanks for really embracing this idea of including young people in this process. So, thanks.
Thank you, Vice President Minnick. Member Cochran.
Thank you for the great report. Just some nuts and bolts. The first meeting is just around the corner on Monday. Do you have a room and a time on that?
Yes, the schedule is at the back of the room. It's Washington Room at 5:30 p.m. And now that the appointments have been announced, I will be contacting everyone by phone tomorrow and following up with an email.
Okay, and are the meetings 5:30 in general on the Mondays?
We are starting this one at 5:30. We have done 6 o'clock in other years, but we have calendared all Mondays this year.
And is there childcare available?
My contact tomorrow will be to ask if they require childcare. Absolutely provided.
Okay.
I just didn't want to schedule it without speaking to people first.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited about the process this year. And I would just like to say to all the members that are going to be on this committee, it's a big commitment. It's a meeting a month, basically, for the rest of this school year. And every time you come is hugely valuable. We all are busy. We all have things that come up. But I'm hoping that you can attend as many meetings as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. So we were a little bit premature in our discussion. They are not appointments yet. This is an action item. They are merely nominations. So I will entertain a motion to move them from nomination to appointments. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries, and congratulations, everyone. Item 9.3, update. 2018-2019 adopted budget. Dr. Quinto, are you paying attention?
Well, good evening, Vice President Wu, board members, Superintendent Aguilar. I'm here to give you a budget update. Previously, I was here about our disapproval from SCUSD. And as I get into this, let me give you an overview of what you will be hearing from me. We'll first look at AB 1200. One of the questions that has been asked me since I got here was, what happened? And so putting a piece back together. So I'll run you through what the financials say of what happened between the months of March, our second interim, and budget adoption. Also take you through the budget disapproval process and the steps we've taken. Kind of what if the budget is not approved by SCOE, what happens thereafter? And then the role of FICMAT, or our Fiscal Crisis Management Assistance Team. So under Ed Code overview, AB 1200, an overview of that, Ed Code 42127, there's a lot of legal jargon, but there's three things that I've bulleted that I think are pointing here. So the county superintendent of schools shall approve or disapprove the budget, and if they disapprove, then they can assign a fiscal advisor. At this point, we've been assigned a fiscal advisor because we are unable to meet our state required mandate of 2% reserve in our outgoing years. So to assist us, and I'd actually ask her, Ms. Terry Ryland, would you please stand and be recognized? She's done a great job, hands please, she's done a great job of supporting us, combing through our financials, trying to put the picture back together, but looking at our assumptions. And Ms. Ryan, I can't thank you enough. So what happened? So at the end of the day, budgeting is a zero-sum game. And as we looked at the March, things seem to be, I kind of refer to our fiscal as a boat. We're floating and going along pretty well. But the July budget hits and our multi-years out show in order to achieve our 2%, we're having to put what they call a placeholder or a negative value into the equation to be able to meet that. So what happened with that? And I think if you go back to the presentation the superintendent gave on June 21st, there was a discussion about programs that were grant funded or using one-time funds. And those one-time funds were due to expire in 17-18. So I'll show you later on a fiscal slide what that looks like on a fiscal paper. But really what happened was, as the grant went away, a decision needed to be made if you continue that program with general funds, remove it, or whatever that may, reapply for the grant. So what happened between the months of March and June is that they were placed into the budget for the general fund to support them. We're combing through and to see all of those programs and how long the history goes on, but some of them that were talked about on the June 21st budget was the teacher induction program. And very important, I was talking to Dr. Taylor today about that. I know the first year I taught in high school, in higher ed, class management was huge. Having a mentor your first year is huge, and I know that's something that would want to be continued. So from March till July, well, we need that program. Dr. Taylor would support that, so would the board. So you place that on the budget. So that now becomes something that eats the budget, eats the general fund. Dr. Taylor, you want to add anything to the teacher induction program and its importance? You're good? Okay. Youth development, 1.7. So I'm kind of student-centered, so I'm kind of teasing some things out that if I was a parent, I have 4 daughters, that would be important to me. So those are hard decisions. And so again, my predecessor put them into the budget between the months of March. They weren't there. And the reason they weren't there, eating the general budget, was because they had a grant, a revenue that came in to offset that expense. But come July 1st, 2018, it no longer has a grant or a revenue to offset the expense. So then you lose revenue, and I'll show you a little bit how that works later. The other one, who doesn't want to support child development? Tough decision. So these are one-time expenses, grants that you're using, and so they'll put into the budget. I didn't get this when I picked this because it made me curious. Soft landing for Burbank. So it sounded like an airport, but actually after talking to the superintendent, it was our QUIA funds. So they were afforded QUIA funds, which was one-time funds from the state. So there's been a soft landing in regards to that. So as the CBO, need to take a look at that and support. Question, sir? So that's what happened. We took one-time expenditures or grant-funded programs, and we placed them into the budget, and there was no offsetting revenue for those, so they have to be paid for or supported through the general fund. So what's that kind of look like? This is a financial statement. Up here is your revenue area. And so you're going to place, if you get a grant, you're going to place it there so it offsets the expenditures that show up on the bottom. So to try to explain what happened between March and July, I'm going to point you exactly to the arrow. There was a placeholder put in for some $22 million. So taking a look at all of the programs and things that were one-time expenditures, they put a placeholder that we did. I need to own this. So we put a placeholder of $22 million there that actually we need to have a discussion about at that point to make our 2% reserve. Is that making sense? So what happens if the budget gets disapproved? Steps to find. So sitting down with the superintendent and our colleagues, we've wanted to make this very simple. And Ms. Riley and I should put, so we're going to conduct a thorough review of our multi-year 2018-19 budget, multi-year, and our target date to complete that is October 1st. And actually, Ms. Riley's the person doing all the hard work. She's interviewing our folks. She's pulling financials. She's combing through there. I'm gleaning a lot of information and learning a lot from her on that. But our goal is, by October 1st, to determine the target dollar amount that we need to cost save or reduce. And from that, after we complete those two, we're starting to compile a list now. I've been with some labor partners who have their ideas, and so we're putting them all on a list, and once we get a target value, we will start looking at that list and seeing what we need to go forward. But ultimately, we need to present a viable budget back to you for adoption by October 4th, because we have till October 8th to get it to SCUSD. So what happens if SCUSD doesn't approve the budget? Well, if it's not approved, the California Department could establish a budget committee for fiscal oversight. We could, as in Sac City, Unified School District, we could waive that and continue working with SCUSD and their appointed fiscal advisor. So it was in discussions with superintendent, the recommendation is to waive the budget committee process and move to continue working with the fiscal advisor and SCUSD. Either way, if you went with the budget committee process or SCUSD, the stay and rescind process under AB 1200 is still in play. So what is stay and rescind? Simply put, it's the authority to say no. So I think that Ms. Ryland explained it best today when I was listening to her, so I'm going to borrow your words, ma'am. If we go to pass anything and it has expenditures to it and they don't think it's viable, they have the ability to say no, but they don't have the ability to tell you to do something. Like they can't come in and tell you, you know what, fire the CBO. Probably a bad analogy. Anyways, so I didn't get no laughs on it. I thought I would get some chuckles. Anyways, So they couldn't say something like that. But if you were going to hire a second CBO, they said, no, you're not good in your budget, so my time's up. They would say, no, you're not going to hire. So they have the ability to simply say no to that. So stay and rescind gives them the authority to say no to what the board approves. You okay on that, Mr.? So we would continue working collaboratively with our labor partners and other stakeholders to identify these cost savings or reductions to approve an adjusted budget. And the goal is to basically end the stay and rescind, give the authority back to the board, full authority, to say yes and no. Actually, it kind of sounds like my dad. Anyways, the goal is to end the stay and rescind process as soon as possible. I think optimistically the first, but probably more conservatively by the second interim. I think it's also prudent at this time to discuss with you the role of the fiscal management team, assistance team. And a district with a disapproved budget or a negative interim report triggers FICMAC to come in and do what they call a fiscal health analysis. The health analysis actually covers more than 20 questions and areas. It's kind of an exhausted, I think the document's 10 pages long. It's a new process. They had an older one. But I wanted to show you some of the areas they kind of look at. So the first one's more, I think, very critical. They look at the financial data, how accurate and timely it is. I'm going to go through all of these. Does the district have a good attendance program for ADA? How do they address short-term cash flow needs? Or do we have a plan to address those? Has the board approved to eliminate a plan to eliminate deficit spending? Retiree benefit liabilities. These are the areas that FICMAT would look at as they come in and assess our fiscal health. One of the ones down here is, do we do a pre-settlement analysis, including multi-year projections, and which is required by us. So this work is funded entirely by the state, so there's no charge to either us or SCOE. And we are looking to have that done in the month of October. I couldn't really get a definitive answer as to how long the process. I can give you my best guess. It'd be probably 3 to 6 weeks for them to be able to conduct an analysis after discussing a little bit with them on it. But they have a lot of other folks that they're supporting as well. So with that, any questions?
Will we take any questions? Any questions from the public?
We have 5 public comments. Cecile Nunley, followed by Karen Sweat, John Perryman, Grace Trujillo, and David Fisher.
Ms. Nunley, it'd be easier if you just sat in the first row.
I have to get my steps in. No, this one will be quick. I appreciate the presentation, and I understand this is extremely difficult for the district. It's extremely difficult for all of you sitting on the dais. It's extremely difficult for the superintendent, and I just feel very strongly that all of you, including all of the stakeholders of the district, need to work together to really try to solve this problem. The superintendent needs support more than ever, and we all need to work together on this. And I just wanted to be sure I made those comments public, because this is not an easy fix. It is something that really needs to be taken seriously, and it's not a quick just whack everything here or there. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Nunley. Ms. Sweat.
Karen Sweat, Making Sense Work. And before I start, thank you to Mr. Browning and to Mr. Wu. I got the list with the names, but no phone numbers. Teasing.
That might have been intentional.
That's super top secret.
So I'm going to read something. This is recommendation number 10. Develop monthly budget monitoring process for all resources. This is from the 2006 FCMAT report. I've got 10 tabs here. I'd like to read them all to you. And it all comes back to monitoring and a budget committee that is providing monitoring and oversight committee. And I know other sectors have recommended a change in the budget committee, and it is much what I said at the last meeting. I'd like to reimagine this budget committee. And because we do monitoring, I look at the expenditure reports every month. I look at LCFF. I look at specific departments and schools. It's not that hard once you get started doing it, but it needs to start in month 1. And it just takes a little bit of work to look at these reports, look the next month, and you can see what is being spent, what isn't being spent, because what isn't being spent is just as important as departments that are overspending their budget. One of the other recommendations in here real quick is don't make a budget for something that you're not going to use it for. Make it intentional. Anyway, if anybody would like to see the old 2006 report, I'm happy to send it to you. I might even highlight the specific areas that I think are really important.
Thank you.
And thanks for that.
Mr. Perryman.
Let me get this on. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I was surprised. I don't think it clicked on. There we go. Okay. I was surprised when I didn't get a response to my formal complaint alleging misuse of money. And I put the tag more at about $50 million. I don't think you have a small $6 million problem. I think you have more on the order of $50 million. And I emailed you each a copy of the complaint, where I listed line items in the Ed Code or other sections which I think get violated. Especially with supplemental and concentration, I'm not positive that you violated. Guidance language, there's a little bit of flip-flop. But because my school is still down $2 million from 2014 when you took over on LCAP in state and federal money, when you've had a massive increase in that type of money, it's going elsewhere. And it's not going to services to students as is required by law. Anyway, I tried to get your name to email you because I thought it's sort of silly for me to get a second monitor from the state, technical advisor, but the county wouldn't give me your contact information. And I tried to email your new budget guy, but his name isn't in the district database to email him to ask about a response to the complaint. I don't have much time. I've only got 15 days to go to the CDE and ask them for immediate intervention from the date that you failed to respond, which was on the 18th. So I can't wait for you to pass a new budget and see if you fix the things in the new budget. I'm sort of at a quandary about what to do. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Trujillo.
Good evening, members of the board and Superintendent Alligar. I think, I've been speaking, it's so funny, like I said, I go back. I usually never talk about my degrees or what I've done over the years, but I do have an accounting degree, and a business degree, and I've looked in all the budget situations, especially the underfunded liabilities. I think this is a thing that I've always been talking about for years. And I think that's the key thing. The fact that over the years, this was something that I brought up in many, many occasions, and obviously now it's impact, and SCOE's involved. And this is the fact that we're in a strong economy. So nevertheless, wait until the economy hits, and it's going to be even worse. I'm glad that you guys are addressing these issues now. If they would have been addressed sooner, we wouldn't be in this situation. obviously the school districts is not the only one. It's federal and state and the counties. And the police department and the federal are all in the similar situations. Different ones are in different stages. But I think the key thing is working together. There's a give and take in everything. Like we mentioned before, it's teamwork, making decisions. It's hard decisions. I think one of the key things the robotic we're talking about is the fact that they're funding. I've seen it over the years. First, it was training for teachers. It was closure of schools. It was, different department, busing, field trips. I've heard it, and I heard it all. It's just like a budget from a household. Some of your fixed costs continue to go up. Other costs continue to go down. Some grant money is coming available. Some grant money is not coming available. Bills come up. Situations, medical, it's the same thing. So I'm glad that everybody's working together and addressing it, because if it doesn't get addressed, obviously there's going to be another financial officer, and only God knows what else is going to happen. And this is on a good economy. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Trujillo. Mr. Fisher.
Good evening. I'm David Fisher, President of the Sacramento City Teachers Association. I believe you have a proposal that we presented the other day that we think could possibly save up to $16 million. In the proposal, you'll see the backup documents, including some documents you should be familiar with, in previous budgets. And in some context, you'll see pages and pages of districts listed with the percentages of non-management salaries as compared to the budget, and we are dead last on there. CDA is a little behind there. That was 2015-16 numbers, but that's the last that's available. First, I'd like to say that we had a very productive meeting today with our new Chief Business Officer, Dr. Quinto. Want to acknowledge our appreciation for listening and answering as best as he could to many of our questions. We did find it interesting that Mr. Quinto had some of the same questions that we had. The questions include, but aren't limited to, an explanation of how in March 2018 the district submitted a second interim budget with a positive certification, a self-designation that SCOE concurred with in April. And 2 months later, the district submitted a deficient 2018-19 budget. What's up with that? Number two, how the district could submit its 2018-19 budget to the county and the state that it had more than double the minimum reserve mandated by the state without providing any detail on how that would be accomplished. Number three, the method used to calculate the increased cost in wages and benefits to ensure accuracy. Number four, a more detailed explanation behind the at least $36.4 million in questionable expenditures. We have those listed on page 3 of our proposal. And then just this afternoon, we were looking at the 2017-18 unaudited actuals DAT file, and a lot of interesting things, including line 53, professional consulting services, went from $15 million to $24 million, which is a $10 million jump. And on page 3, you'll see a bunch of other questions we have, including the board budget going up by several $100,000, and the deputy superintendent might be perfectly logical answers, but those are some questions we have. It's fair to say that, to Mr. Quinto's credit, that despite his best efforts, most of the questions remain unanswered at this time, and we look forward to getting the answers from him. Accordingly, any discussion of sacrifice is premature. Regardless of the current budget status, we think we should all agree that the priority needs to be ensuring that our students have the qualified teachers, support staff, and instructional materials to succeed. That is, our resources need to be prioritized in the classroom, not the Cerna Center. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Are there any further? Oh.
We have one more from Rachel Ditmore.
Hello, my name is Rochelle Ditmore, and I'm here from City of Refuge. And I actually was working in a field today, our field, building a sign with a group from Amarak that says "Hope lives here." And I went home, didn't have time to shower. I'm like, I can't believe I showed up at school board meeting looking like this. But I felt extremely compelled to come and to remind you that there are people in this city who are for you. there are partners, there are resources. We can't imagine the burden that you are bearing. We had a conversation with our team a couple of weeks ago, and we heard about the budget cuts in regards to Shine and a program called Grit that we have for children in our schools. And our team looked at us and they said, what are we going to do? And I said, we're going to continue to show up and run these programs. Because when I look at revolutions and when I look at things of the past, when cities and nations were impacted, it was because people stepped up. And I do believe that in times when there are budget cuts and we don't have contracts and we don't have grants, that it really is an opportunity for authentic people to step up and for our school district to tell a story. I believe there are churches, I believe there are community partners that will step in and serve. And so I just want you to know that from City of Refuge that we are for you, we are with you, we are a partner. Whether this is appropriate or not, we are praying for you. We believe that there is hope, and we believe that in these times that we will see miraculous things because we need a miracle. Sacramento needs a miracle. Our nation does. And if all we have to depend on is a dependability of the dollar, then I think that as a people it leaves us weak. And in these moments, we can see strong and we can experience that together. So we are here with open arms. We're thankful for you. Superintendent Aguilar, we honor you. We are thankful for your leadership and for you being here in our city. So thank you.
Thank you. Very encouraging. Any discussion from my colleagues? Vice President Minnick.
I had just a question for Dr. Quinto. If I heard you correctly, sorry, do you want me to give you a second? Sorry. We'll be theoretically on the 4th of October, our next meeting. We'll be voting for a revised budget, correct? Am I right in understanding that?
Yes, sir. That would be my hope.
And what I understood from you is that you're anticipating potentially 3 to 6 weeks before we would know from SCOE whether or not that our next budget would be approved. Was that your estimate?
That would be incorrect, sir. In a takeaway, that'd be my. I need to restate what I meant.
Yeah, could you clarify just that order?
FICMAT in October has a process for fiscal health, and they would take 3 to 6 weeks to assess our health, fiscal health.
Okay, so
that's what I meant about October. In that duration of process, SCOE with their fiscal advisor is currently combing through our finances. We're due to have some hard answers or some target values for what actually our saving or reduction mark is by the end of next week.
Okay, so then do I understand then when by the time a revised budget comes to us for a vote, we will already have worked with the financial advisor appointed by SCOE to ensure that it meets the requirements from Superintendent Gordon and before it comes to us for a vote. Like what I'm asking is that when we vote on the 4th, are we still kind of up in the air as to whether or not we know that if it's going to get approved or not? Or will we know before we vote?
Well, no, we won't know. Our role is to get a target value and look at savings or reductions, and through our financial system, SACS and some other in-the-weeds stuff, submit that and bring it back to you with a report. Whether SCOE takes that back and approves it, actually, it would be Ms. Ryland and their advisor looking at, yes, this is viable, approve it. They're looking for things like, we're going to raise our ADA 10%. They're going, you can't, that's not, you're getting a one-time fund in January. You can't make a budget on what ifs. So it's got to be something they feel is viable, something that we can carry out with fidelity. And so that's their responsibility. So our hope is to take and see the target value, see if we have enough savings as we start complying, working with our stakeholders and our labor partners, try to match those two, and then bring them back to you for approval on the 4th. And that's optimistic.
So theoretically, we could have some feedback as to the viability of this budget during this process before it comes back to us.
Yes. In fact, there's already been some adjustments that Ms. Ryland has already caught. The May revise, and when the legislature adopted the budget in June, they raised COLA. So our original budget didn't have COLA. I'm trying to be optimistic here because there's also some on the expenditure side, but those are kinds of the adjustments that she's looking at to making sure our books are as accurate as we can get them.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Member Hanson.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Clearly, we've got a lot of things to consider in the next several weeks and probably a little bit beyond that. I was encouraged by an earlier comments from some of our other labor partners that they'd been meeting in a labor management coalition, and they had some comments today. They did a press conference where they offered to work together with the district cooperatively, like many unions do with their school boards all across the state. That's the way it's supposed to work. And I was heartened by David Fisher. Thank you for your comments. I would hope that, I know the three of you didn't get a chance to be here earlier at this meeting to hear the comments of the other labor partners. But I know that you've been asked to participate in many of the labor management coalition meetings for several months, and I'm wondering if that's something you might consider doing, and I'd encourage you to do that. I think it'd be great if you could work with our other labor partners as we work on this issue over the next weeks and months. I think that'd be really important. We're all in this together. We talk about that a lot, and we have a lot of work to do, but we need to be doing it together if we're going to be successful for our students.
Thank you, Member Hanson. Are there any more comments? Seeing none, this is an information item, so I thank you, Dr. Quinto. Look forward to future presentations. Item 9.4, Old Marshall Draft Lease Agreement. Ms. Allen.
Good evening, Vice President Wu and members of the board and superintendent. A very brief update on the Old Marshall Draft Lease Agreement we've been working on pretty significantly since 2016. It's actually been going on since basically 2013 when I started here. This was on an early agenda. So one of the major milestones, just to bring to everyone's attention, to keep people up to speed, in November of 16, we did get direction from the board to go ahead and begin negotiations with the developer for the reuse of some kind of a reuse of the Old Marshall site in Midtown. We selected through an RFQ process the development team of Mogavero Architects and Bardis Homes. They submitted a proposal to renovate the beautiful 113-year-old school site into roughly 16 to 20 condominium units, and then also to build 2 new structures on the site, each housing about 16 condominiums. Currently, the board is considering a draft ground lease agreement with approval tentatively scheduled for October 4th, 2018. If that does move forward, then also during open session on the 4th, we would be discussing for the public's purview what the terms of the ground lease agreement end up being. So really just wanted to give you just a couple of little pictures here. Obviously an older picture on the left and somewhat current on the right, just an aerial view. These renderings right here I took from the Mogavero Bardis Performa that we have in our office. I think you've seen this before, but just thought I would share it with some of the members of the public. And then just to point out a couple of the highlights of the development proposal. One of the goals is to maintain as much of the existing architecture as feasible. The additions themselves would be about 3 stories tall. I think there's some subterranean parking that's been talked about. Some would have some large outdoor patios. Some would have some rooftop patios, 10-foot ceilings, and the goal is also in the main building to maintain the 13-foot high ceilings, which is a pretty nice space. There will be also some porches at ground level. The units will range in square footage between 800 and about 2,000 square feet. And much of the work will be done using the Department of Interior standards for historic buildings. So again, super quick overview of where we are. We had a pretty good meeting tonight. Heard some more details about what this ground lease proposal might look like. It's been a heavy lift to get to this point, but I'm optimistic that we'll make progress and be able to bring back something to the board for your consideration on October 4th. So I know the development team is here. If you have questions for them, I'm sure they would be happy to come up. Otherwise, I'll sit down. And
Thank you, Ms. Allen. Okay. Mr. Barrios, are there any public comment?
Yes, we have 3 public comments. Julie Murphy, followed by Louis Demas and Tom Quazibarth.
Superintendent Aguilar, members of the board, thank you so much for this opportunity to speak tonight. This has been an incredibly long process. The community wants the preservation and reuse of Old Marshall School. It's a historic landmark in our community, and we are watching it fall apart every day. And when we undertook this, when the 2016 was an awesome year for this process. Under Jay Hansen's leadership, we had a very robust community outreach. There was a detailed vetting of all of the different community ideas and the developers who were interested in working on the project. And we had such a tremendous amount of transparency and such an open process in 2016. So I quite frankly am disappointed that it's 2 years later and we're just now to the point where we're talking about the terms of the ground lease. But I'm very hopeful that we get there in a couple of weeks. And the Mocavero Bardis team is a tremendous partner in this project. They are committed to a quality project. Central City has its reputation for NIMBYs, and this is one situation where this is a development we desperately want. We desperately want the preservation of that historic building. We also want the addition of new housing in our community as well. The Mocavero Bardis team is committed to restoring the building, and they're also committed to the new buildings being appropriate to a historic neighborhood. It checks a lot of boxes for the communities. We're very supportive of it. This, we have to acknowledge, is a difficult project to build. It's been vacant for 9 years. Every day that it remains vacant, the value of your asset diminishes, and it becomes even more challenging for the builders to try to restore the building. I'd also ask that you be sensitive to the current market conditions. There are labor shortages and there are supply increases. So when you're looking at this lease, keep in mind that this is a huge financial commitment and risk for the builders. We've had a very positive series of community meetings, a large meeting and smaller focused meetings. This is something the community wants. So I urge you to continue on with this process. This is a great group to work with. We're going to get a quality project for the ages. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Louis Demas. I began attending Marshall School kindergarten in 1944. Continued all the way to 1951. It's one of the greatest experiences I ever had in my life. I've always thought that Marshall School was one of the finest primary schools in the United States, and I continue to feel that way. It was an excellent education, but part of that education was contributed to by the majesty of that building and the utility of it. It was just an enormous, you know, back in those days in the 40s and 50s, well populated with children. As a consequence, Marshall School was not just a school, but it was also a community center and is well suited for it. And over the years, we've watched it, you know, and ideally, it would be continued as a public use where everyone can share in it, but that's not going to happen. And the board is now is given an opportunity to do something with it, and we feel basically we have wonderful partners who seek to develop it. It'll be for private use, but it'll at least be preserved. Over the years, we've watched it become deteriorated. And the other thing is that the fear, every time you hear a fire engine is going to Marshall School with some tragedy, that it's unattended, it's unused, and it needs to be put to good use. The architects and the builders have met with the community and met with our neighborhood association and have been extremely positive and receptive to all the suggestions we have, and we believe they'll continue to work with us, and we urge you to proceed and approve the lease in October. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Tom Quasabarth. I'm also a community member on the board of the Neighborhood Association. In October of 2016, at Kathy Allen's invitation, I was one of 3 community representatives who was on the selection committee. We reviewed 3 proposals and unanimously recommended the team that is undertaking the process right now. This was a major milestone in a multi-year process that under the leadership of Member Hansen, with a lot of encouragement and nudging from Member Cochran, was a really open and transparent process. And now, almost 2 years later, with a lot of twists and turns and delays, which we understand, I'm here to say that I think we made the right choice. This summer, this late spring and summer, I've attended 2 meetings with the development team. I think the open and transparent process, which was initiated by the district, is continuing. I feel like the community input is being heard. I would urge the board to be expeditious in this process. This facility, which is, to be blunt, has been neglected by the district, is in danger of becoming a blight on our neighborhood, and we need to move forward with the team in place, and I urge the board to do just that in the upcoming meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Colleagues? This was an information item, so I thank you, Ms. Allen. Moving on to item 10, consent agenda. I have a motion to move the consent agenda, and I have the second by Member Hansen. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 11, business and financial information. We are receiving this information on purchase order board report for the period of June 15th, 2018 through July 14, 2018. Item 12, future board meeting dates. October 4th here, 4:30 p.m. closed session, 6 p.m. open session. October 18th, 4:30 p.m. closed session, 6 p.m. open session. Adjournment. Member Pritchett.
Thank you, Vice President Wu. Tonight, sadly, I'd like to adjourn in the memory of Deputy Mark Stasyuk, who was assigned to the beat in the Rancho Cordova area. He quickly earned the respect of the community he served, and it is apparent in many of the stories that we have recently heard, such as his service to Abraham Lincoln and the surrounding community. Mark's background of immigrating from Ukraine and being fluent in the language helped to strengthen the relationship with community members throughout the city and the county. He has received countless letters of appreciation from community members, as well as several accolades from his department for his work. I ask for just a moment of silence for Deputy Mark Stasyuk. Thank you, and I'll motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.